Okay, what a beautiful day. Good afternoon, everybody. Nice to see you here on the lawn of the legislature. And I'm standing beside Minister Bowinn Ma, our Minister for Infrastructure. We introduced an important new bill in the House today. It is a bill that responds to the very real need we have in this province to build schools and hospital and critical infrastructure, private sector investments that grow our economy, to build them faster. When a project takes too long to build, costs more money for taxpayers. It means that people in the community don't get to enjoy it. It doesn't get to work, creating the opportunity and jobs for British Columbians that we need. And at the end of the day, it's just frustrating. So this bill, at the end of the day, is a collection of tools that government can use in partnership with project proponents and other governments to be able to get things built faster. The things that British Columbians count on every day. Schools for their kids, hospitals and long-term care homes when they're ill. Making sure that this infrastructure is there for us and for future generations, that we do it effectively, efficiently, and cost-consciously as well. In terms of the details of the bill, I'm going to pass it over to Minister Ma. And I'd like to thank her and her team for this. This is part of the standing up of a new ministry within government that is looking for efficiencies in how we deliver projects. Instead of one school project, having an array of schools that are bid out at the same time, built in the same time, and the same construction that saves us money. Initiatives like that to make sure that the infrastructure we're building is delivered quickly and efficiently. And this bill introduced in the House is just part of that. With that, I'll turn it over to Minister Ma.
Thank you so much, everyone. Honored to be joining you here on the territories of the Lekwungen-speaking peoples, Songhees and the Esquimalt First Nations. People rightly expect their government, our government, to deliver the infrastructure that they need in communities. Our government has been doing this incredibly important work with record investments in infrastructure across BC, but recent population growth and years of underinvestments from previous governments has made it difficult to catch up. Between June of 2023 and June of 2024 alone, British Columbia's population exploded by 188,000 people. And for every 10,000 people that are added to British Columbia's population, we need an additional 50 classrooms, 18 hospital beds, and 4,000 additional homes. That's for every 10,000 people. And we saw 188,000 people join us in a single 12-month period between 23 and 24. This sort of growth is extraordinary, and absolutely very few jurisdictions are able to keep up with that massive amount of growth. But we are making progress. Over the last 8 years, we've started or completed work on 30 hospital projects, 228 major school projects, over 10,700 student housing beds on post-secondary campuses around BC. We've started work on a medical school, long-term care homes, transportation projects, and so much more. But we know that still there is much more to do. Some projects continue to face unnecessary delays due to slow, unclear, or duplicative approval processes, often with lengthy, overlapping permitting requirements. And with all the economic uncertainty that we are facing around the world, now more than ever, we need to deliver the projects that people and communities need faster so that we can strengthen our province and help secure our economy. That's why my ministry was created last November, to help get priority projects like schools, like hospitals, like student housing on campuses built faster. The Infrastructure Projects Act, which I had the honor of introducing today, is an important step towards delivering these projects more efficiently. And if passed, the Act will allow government to speed up approvals for infrastructure projects that will significantly benefit people and communities, including some designated projects delivered by other partners. These other projects could be delivered by Crown corporations, local governments, First Nations, and the private sector. They would need to create significant economic, social, or environmental benefits for people in BC and are, for example, projects that contribute to the priorities of British Columbians. Projects like public infrastructure, those that contribute to food security, access to critical minerals, and replacing U.S. imports. I know there will be questions about whether this act might be used for projects like low barrier housing or safe injection sites, and for greater assurance to the public, the answer is no. In essence, this legislation will enable government to expand on work already underway to reduce redundancies, not standards, but redundancies, so that we can get shovels in the ground faster. We'll be able to prioritize and accelerate approvals for projects that will make a difference for people and their communities. And the Environmental Assessment Office will be developing an expedited environmental assessment process so that designated provincially significant projects may go through a faster review while continuing to uphold high environmental standards. The Act will also put the authority of the new ministry, the Ministry of Infrastructure, into law. This gives us the authority to carry out our roles and responsibilities, such as policy development, project planning and prioritization, land acquisition, and procurement that were previously under the Ministries of Health, Education, Childcare, and Post-Secondary Education and Future Skills. The Act will also provide a framework for the province to work collaboratively with local governments to resolve delays so that we can deliver projects that are shared priorities. And the Act will enable us to work with school districts, health authorities, and post-secondary institutions to deliver some projects on their behalf when it makes sense. For example, we could group similar projects into a single procurement or purchase project components for multiple projects at the same time. This will save money and deliver faster results. Or for smaller school districts or post-secondary institutions, ones that might not have as much experience with major infrastructure projects, it would mean that the Ministry of Infrastructure could help them by delivering the project on their behalf. Ultimately, the Infrastructure Projects Act will help us continue to strengthen public infrastructure that people rely on, like schools, hospitals, and support BC's economy, because we know that we have a heck of a lot of building underway. We've got a heck of a lot more building to do, and we want to do this work as efficiently as possible. So we're finding more ways to work smarter, work better, and more collaboratively so that we can deliver on the priority infrastructure that you need, that you and your families and your communities need. And we can't do this work alone. We're looking forward to continuing to work with our important partners, local governments, First Nations, other partners and interest holders to get these projects built so that families and communities can continue to thrive and that BC's economy can continue to become stronger and more resilient. Thank you so much. We'll now open up for questions from the media.
Thank you so much for everyone joining in today. For callers on the line, a reminder to press star 1 to enter the queue. We will start with questions on the ground. We have Katie DeRosa, CBC.
Premier, in your letter to Prime Minister Carney, you mentioned the Lapu Lapu Day Festival support that the federal government gave, and you said, we will reach out in the weeks ahead with further advocacy in that area. What specifically does that mean? What are you looking for the federal government on mental health support?
Well, for this horrific tragedy, there are a couple of key components that we'll be talking with the federal government about. One is the incident itself left a significant number of people struggling who witnessed the incident, who were injured, or who died. The Filipino community has been profoundly injured by this, and British Columbians and Canadians have been profoundly moved by this and want that support. I believe there's a role for us to play with the federal government in ensuring that there's the infrastructure in place within the Filipino community out of this horrific incident that allows them to rebuild, that leaves a legacy, a positive legacy out of a horrific tragedy. The community's been advocating for a community center for a long time. We've been working with them on that as an example of the kind of work that we can do together in relation to the specific incident. More broadly, we are doing a lot of work on interventions related to mental health. And we still don't know the why of this man driving his vehicle into this crowd, why he made that decision. That'll come out in the criminal process and, if necessary, in a full public inquiry. But what we do know is there are a lot of people struggling in communities across the province. It's not unique to our province. People are seeing it across Canada. And having a partner at the federal level to assist us in opening the beds that we are aggressively moving to open to ensure that people get the care they need, that they're not suffering and dying in our communities, that they're not compromising safety in our communities, is critically important. It'll be one of the key topics I speak with the Prime Minister about.
To Katie for a follow-up.
We've heard a lot about involuntary care of people with mental health issues, but there's been concerns about the lack of voluntary care for people, especially in rural communities, like people who are asking for help but just cannot get it, or their family members are trying to get help for them. So, what is being done to improve the system of voluntary mental health care?
We've delivered a series of grants to community groups across the province to facilitate access to counseling. 29,000 British Columbians have benefited from those grants that we've offered across the province. For more intense mental health needs, we're adding additional beds at hospitals that we're building across the province, 140 new beds, which brings it to a total of more than 2,000 beds that are available for voluntary admissions as well as involuntary care. We made a campaign commitment that we're going to deliver on to ensure a counselor available in every school to make sure that students are supported. We have a coordinated team that supports in our education system teachers who identify students who are struggling with mental health issues. And we know it's not enough. We know we got to do more. But when we do things like open urgent primary care centers that have a psychiatrist attached, that means that when people attend there, they're able to access psychiatric support through the family doctors that are at those urgent primary care centers as well. We're opening 18 additional Foundry centers across the province for young people, almost doubling the number of Foundry centers. So we're doing a lot of work on the voluntary side. We know that especially young people need that support on mental health and on addiction too often as well. So we're expanding beds in both categories.
Rob Shaw, Check News.
Premier, this bill once again gives Cabinet kind of extraordinary powers to approve projects, set an entirely alternative environmental assessment process with its own timelines, its own thresholds, all in the name of expediency. So could you just maybe tell the public a bit about how you're going to do that while maintaining the environmental standards and safety standards that exist in the current process that it looks like in significant projects you're going to bypass and create a new one?
Sure. We have an array of projects that go through environmental assessment. The environmental assessment process weighs, there's going to be some environmental damage that's caused by the project. What are the benefits that flow from the community, and how will that environmental damage be mitigated through the process? It's a mandatory process for certain projects, and there are often steps within the environmental assessment process that don't make sense for a particular project, but we have to go through them because it's set out in the statute. For many projects, it's not a big deal. They go through the steps. But for some projects, they're time sensitive, whether because it's a private investment and we're trying to get those shovels in the ground, get that investment realized in the province. It's a public investment. It's a significant new project that's going to bring relief around education or healthcare. And there are steps that the unambiguous social good of these public projects gets evaluated in the same way as any other project. And so it allows us to customize the steps within the environmental assessment process to the particular project. We work within a framework as a government of public support. We think that the public supports faster construction of schools, hospitals, badly needed transportation and transit, as well as job-creating economic opportunities in the province. That will, by definition, constrain our use of this to only those projects that are critically important for the growth of the province and supporting communities. We think that faster delivery of public projects and major economic projects in the province will be popular with the public. We think it's what the public wants. They don't want a huge amount of process debating whether or not it's a good thing to build a new school. They just want the school. And this isn't an abstract concern. We had a school that was delayed 6 months waiting for a community to update its official community plan to note that this is where the school was going to be located. We had another school that waited for a year in relation to a ditch on the property. It was identified as significant under the Water Sustainability Act, even though it was anything but. So we do need that ability on these critical projects to be able to ensure they move ahead and don't get stuck.
Follow up, Rob.
Just on a different topic, car dealers put out a release the other day saying there's no way that the province can achieve its EV targets that are legislated. Now that our latest climate numbers show we have not actually reduced greenhouse gas emissions from 2007 levels at all, despite 8 years and $4 billion. So I wonder, are you sticking with the requirement that we have all electric vehicle sales in future years and those kind of legal benchmarks when the industry says they can't be achieved because we're not moving fast enough on our targets?
Well, I think first of all, on carbon pollution in the province, in the last 2 years we added 300,000 people to the province. Our economy has grown since 2017 at the second fastest rate in the entire country, second only to PEI. PEI is hustling out there, I guess. And despite that massive growth in people and economic activity in the province, we have disconnected that from carbon pollution growth. We're demonstrating clean growth. And we set very ambitious targets to drive down carbon pollution. It's very hard to do in an environment when you're adding 300,000 people in 2 years. Our biggest driver is transportation. That's why we're building transit across the province. The other biggest driver is restriction around the availability of electricity to industry to reduce pollution from major industrial polluters. That's why we're building new transmission lines and new generation and 2 calls for power. So I just want to address that because we have actually shown important success. We set ambitious targets, and we're going to continue to work on that. For the car dealers, their concerns are real. The Minister of Energy is working with them. This will be part of the Clean BC review. One of the things that I want to make sure is that we're not sending money to Elon Musk through this program, that we're actually supporting British Columbians getting into zero-emission vehicles in the province in a real and practical way. And that we're doing the same for our transit system and for our heavy haulers as well. That's why we have a hydrogen infrastructure project for medium-duty trucks that we're putting into place between here and Alberta. It's a very exciting project, but it's going to be initiatives like that, and it's going to be part of the Clean BC review. I'm sure the feedback from the car dealers will be key to how we ensure Clean BC remains relevant going forward and drives down emissions.
Rob Buffum, CTV.
Hi, Premier. Yesterday you announced that there would be a review and a modernization of the Mental Health Act. Advocates have been calling for years for this to happen, including the All-Party Committee on the Police Act that published their report in 2022, who said this had to happen and had to happen a long time ago. You'd said the delay was because of this pending lawsuit, but you are now going ahead with it. And critics say you could have gone ahead with it earlier, and because the issue of the lawsuit is, a portion of the act, but it's a discrete part of it. What do you say to critics who say this should have been done earlier and it could have been done earlier?
Well, I guess we'll have to agree to disagree. I mean, it's a significant thing to have a constitutional challenge, and a credible one, to our Mental Health Act forced treatment provisions. It's a big deal to change that act while the case is in front of the court. We don't know what the direction from the court is going to be out the other side. For a purely efficiency as well as a sort of pragmatic perspective of not wanting to change things while the hearing is going ahead in front of the court, we made the call to wait until this was complete before modernizing the act. But where we are in British Columbia is that we just can't wait. We have to take that risk. It is a risk, but it's important for people to know that we hear them in terms of their anxieties about, for example, parents being able to be involved in the lives of adult children who struggle with mental illness or with someone who's suicidal. These are critical and important issues for British Columbians, and so we take it seriously, and we're going to move ahead with that modernization.
To Buffum for a follow-up.
Just wanted to ask you about in question period, the speculation tax came up significantly, and there was instances detailed of people who had been dinged in cases due to paperwork or things of that sort. The Conservatives suggesting that the rollout of the tax has not been good and questioning its need or its veracity if it was being approached properly. What's your reaction?
I mean, this isn't a surprise to me. John Rustad has been opposed to the speculation tax since it was introduced. I think we're going on 4 years ago now. That tax took a bunch of empty homes in our province that were being held as investments and turned them into rental homes for 20,000 families. And I understand he wants to go back to a world where you can buy a home and leave it as an investment, leave it vacant. We just fundamentally disagree on that. Like any tax program, there's something you got to do. Get the form in the mail, you got to fill it out and return it. There's a very generous process if you miss the deadline to get things set right. There's an appeal process if you feel you've been miscategorized for some reason. But the bottom line is you got to be tax resident in British Columbia. And if you have a vacant home, you have to rent it out. And I don't think that's too much to ask. And I think British Columbians support that. And if Mr. Rustad wants to continue to advocate against a tax that ensures that empty homes become occupied by families that need them and discourages people from buying homes and leaving them vacant as investments, then that's a point I'm happy to disagree with him on.
Wolf Deppner, Canadian Press.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon. Thank you for taking my question. Premier, can you talk about the upcoming provincial day of mourning? Can you talk about why the province has not followed some of the moves seen in other jurisdictions on similar occasions? So when other jurisdictions have had days of mourning, they have, for example, closed down schools, closed down public offices, and so on. Why didn't the province follow the example seen in other jurisdictions? Thank you.
Well, I do understand that a lot of people will want to mark this in different ways. And they may be at work or they may be at school. One of the impacts that we've seen from this horrific tragedy, this mass murder, is particularly in the school system. We've heard from teachers that have kids in their classes that have witnessed this horrific event. That there are kids, there's the 5-year-old who died, a student in the Lower Mainland, and students only found out when they went to school on Monday. So when you have this kind of trauma and tragedy, one of the things that we've worked to do is to provide supports through schools, for example. Many workplaces have employment support programs. I expect that employers will be understanding if people wish to attend events or mark this in their own way. We know for kids in school that they're going to be able to access services better when they're in school than not. And for parents who need to, they'll take their kids out of school and they'll attend these memorials. So we'll leave this to the discretion of British Columbians and the judgment of British Columbians about how they're going to mark the day. And we'll take our lead from the community in terms of the events that are going to be taking place that day.
Follow-up from Wolf.
Yes, thank you for that answer. Talking about infrastructure now. So over the last few years, we've seen the provincial bureaucracy grow, but with today's legislation, you have acknowledged that BC could be doing things faster. So based on the available resources when it comes to dealing with these permitting processes, how confident are you that you'll be able to do things quicker with the same amount of resources when you couldn't get things done faster before? Thank you.
It's not correct, Wolf, that we're not accelerating things. We have shown significant reductions in permitting times for everything from mines to housing to new roads and other key permits, whether it's Heritage Sustainability Act or Water Sustainability Act permits. What this enables us to do is, while we're doing that work on the red tape and the administration that doesn't actually protect anything, it just delays. And like the best example is a delay in a tree cutting permit on a mine site that's already been approved. There's an area that's going to be dug up for a mine, and you have to wait for the tree cutting permit to be able to cut the trees before you start digging. I think that's a very good example of the kind of issues that we're dealing with. We can deal with those contradictions. We can deal with those things that don't make sense, the procedural formalities that don't add anything to environmental protection. And for certain projects, we can take that project and put it on the top of the pile to make sure it's being dealt with first. And I just on your point about the growth in the public service, there's two kinds of growth that we've seen. One's really positive: hiring teachers, hiring nurses, hiring doctors, hiring healthcare professionals in every corner of the province, hiring mental health professionals, training additional mental health professionals. This is a significant part of the growth. I just met with the paramedics. We have almost twice as many paramedics in the province as we did at the time of the heat dome when so many people passed away. This is important and necessary growth to deliver frontline services. But there is another kind of growth that doesn't help us, which is administration that can lead to delay, can lead to waste. And that's why we're currently doing a review right now within the public service to get rid of that administration cost as much as possible, to focus on frontline services that benefit British Columbians. And it will have the added effect, because we're doing it carefully and responsibly and looking at delivering services to people in ways that they can access, that at the end of the day, it will also have the effect of reducing permitting times and increasing the ability of people to access necessary services from government.
We'll move to the phone lines for a question now. We have Richard Zisman, Global News.
Premier, thanks for taking my question. Back to the letter you sent to the Prime Minister. What are you hoping to accomplish here from what you've sent the Prime Minister in terms of, do you hope that there's a Premier's meeting before the Prime Minister goes to meet directly with President Trump? What other deliverables would you like to see from him? And are you worried at all about the dialogue that's happening in Alberta, that Premier Smith continues to raise questions around the unity of this country?
Well, I think if the Prime Minister has an opportunity to meet with the President and it makes sense from his perspective in terms of the conversation, he should just do that. He shouldn't wait for the Premiers or anybody else. He should get that conversation started. But what I did ask the Prime Minister to do is immediately call us together, call the Premiers together, sit down at the table with us. And we need to do a couple of things. We need to get rid of the internal trade barriers across the country, make sure we can trade across the country as easily as we do south of the border. We got to build up our country and buy from each other, support each other. And the second is, here in BC is the softwood lumber industry. We're under direct attack from the United States. Tariffs have doubled, duties have doubled. There's a national security investigation into our timber supply, which is ludicrous. There's going to, many people reasonably fear will impose even more duties. Right across the country, people want a deal on softwood lumber. And so making sure that that's part of the discussion is going to be part of what I'm raising. But I know Ontario wants to raise auto parts. I know Quebec has their own concerns as well. And so making sure that we respond as a country, supporting each province with the challenges that the Trump administration has brought to us is the second part. Supporting the workers, supporting the provincial economies that have been impacted by these actions already. For my colleagues in Manitoba and Saskatchewan, the Chinese tariffs have really hurt them. So that needs to be part of the conversation as well. And so none of that can happen unless we're all at the table together. But if we're all at the table together, I think it'll happen very quickly indeed.
Richard, for a follow-up.
We're starting to see municipal governments across the province start putting together motions encouraging you to provide mental health care supports. We now have the review of the Mental Health Act, but there have been concerns raised by municipalities about chronically underfunded mental health and addiction services in the province. Do you have any plans on meeting with UBCM or municipalities around the work that you can do to address these issues municipality to municipality?
It was actually the Union of BC Municipalities and municipal leaders. The City of Prince George was just here at the legislature. That led to the significant investments around public safety in the budget, doubling the number of police officers we're training at the Justice Institute of BC. Special operational funding for police to be able to do operations related to things like organized shoplifting and other quality of life crimes that they might otherwise not have the resources to attend to. Additional supports for peer teams, for nurses accompanying police, and ACT teams around people struggling with mental health and addiction issues in communities. And we opened our first set of beds at Surrey, had the mayor out there at Surrey pretrial, providing that mental health care within the prison as people wait for trial so that they're not released back to the community in worse shape than they went into custody, or they're kept for mental health treatment instead of being released. We're opening additional beds in Maple Ridge. We're opening additional beds in other parts of the province as well. We're doing that work right now. So actually it was the advocacy of UBCM and municipalities. Many municipalities have stepped up and said, we have a site. We'd like you to locate beds in our community to provide this kind of care. I'm very grateful for that. And it's that kind of cooperation between the local government and the provincial government that's going to help us really get ahead of this problem and deal with it.
Shannon Waters, the Narwhal.
Hi, I think this is probably a question for the minister. I'm wondering if you can confirm that pipelines and LNG projects won't be subject to this new legislation, and if you can explain why, and that the energy security factor that is being considered for the provincially significant projects designation will only apply to renewable energy sources. And can you explain why that's the case, if so?
So I'll allow the minister to step up and share her perspective as well, but I think it's important to hear it from me. For LNG plants themselves, for pipelines, that's not what this legislation is about. We won't be using it for those things. However, we will be using it for energy security. And that could be anything from hydrogen plants, hydrogen generation. We have some important conversations about how We're going to safely transport hydrogen once it's generated. Ideally, this will be right on the coast, but if we need to transport hydrogen, one of the conversations we're having about hydrogen relates to hydrogen by rail. And so what are the safety requirements that need to be in place and so on, but there will be infrastructure that's required once that's determined in consultation with communities and with First Nations. And so there's a lot of work to do in the energy sector. We have climate goals that we're shooting for. We have a priority around clean energy and clean electricity. And you can see that this bill pairs up with Minister Dix's bill around all our new clean energy projects going through the BC Energy Regulator, which enables us to move even faster on transmission lines, wind power, and other renewable energy. So that's the reason for that. That's our plan for this bill, and that's our commitment in relation to those specific types of infrastructure, heavy oil pipelines and LNG, and associated pipelines to LNG. With that, I'll pass it over to the minister.
You've covered it.
Okay.
Follow up from Shannon.
Yeah, thanks for that answer. One of the other things I wanted to ask about, Minister Dix has said that the North Coast transmission line, its primary customers will be the residents of Northwest BC, but there's some internal government documents that suggest that basically all of the power that that line is expected to carry has already been sort of asked for potentially by mining projects and LNG projects, hydrogen projects, and ports. Is the North Coast transmission line going to primarily power homes in Northwest BC, or is it primarily going to power industry?
The line itself, we expect and we actually hope, will be used to power a lot of heavy industry in the north and in the northwest. And the reason why we hope that is these are some of the biggest polluters in the province, some of our biggest point sources of carbon emissions. It's one of the ways that we hope to drive down carbon pollution and also ensure that whatever is being produced or mined is the cleanest in the world. That's our goal as a jurisdiction. We want BC products to be known to be low carbon, whatever they are, especially as the EU looks at things like carbon tariffs for products coming into that market. It gives us an advantage. London's metal exchange is looking at preferred pricing and a separate listing for sustainably produced metals. This is a natural for British Columbia. And so we're very hopeful that it powers a lot of heavy industry. There are also a lot of communities that don't have access to reliable three-phase power, and they will benefit from this as well. But I would suggest that the primary benefit for people of the Northwest is probably going to be economic in terms of jobs and opportunity in their region that's created by the electricity. And those are the largest users in that region.
Thanks so much for everyone joining. That's all that we have time for today. Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.